At one time, a little girl was running along the road on her way to Sunday school, and she was saying, "Please God, don't let me be late. Please God, don't let me be late. Please God, don't let me be late." And then she fell over, but she was unhurt, and she stood up and she brushed herself off, and she began to run again. And she was saying, "Please God, don't let me be late. But don't push me either." So the theme of the story this morning is patience. Patience is a really prerequisite for our Dharma life. The world moves so fast. Many courses now in spirituality where you can learn to be something in a weekend or 2 weekends. We push everything. We push our food to grow faster. We raise our children to be almost adults when they're infants, because we don't really understand patience. And when it comes to our Dharma practice, it is the emphasis of what we do. As the Buddha said, Kanti Paramita, the perfection of patience, is the highest practice. We bring that into our meditation, to sit without intention, just to be here in this moment, in this environment, with this mind state, with this condition of the body, and to sit with it, and not to try and change it, not to try to move away from it if it's unpleasant, and not to try to hold on to it if it is pleasant, but just to be there comfortably, and accept the nature that we call life as it manifests in front of us in this moment. And we open up and accept that. And just that very acceptance reveals to us the truth, the reality of this being that we call self. There isn't anything to get. There isn't anything to strive for. There isn't anything that's missing from you. There is just this being manifesting in time and space. And the opportunity to understand that is always with us. Once we let go of that idea of getting something, of striving towards something. So the theme of the story this morning is about patience, and it begins like this. At one time there was a master who lived alone in a small monastery on the outskirts of a small town. Now this word master is a word that is used a lot, I think, and misappropriated a lot, especially in the spiritual world. People, as I said earlier, people do weekend courses and suddenly they have a piece of paper which says they're a master of something. But you have to reflect for yourself. How long does it take to become good at something? And how long does it take to master something? My father was a carpenter. That's years of training to become a master carpenter. Or to be able to bake bread, to be a boulanger, to be a baker. How long to master that? It's only in the spiritual world that we have these very fast courses that at the end you have a certificate saying, you are now a master of this. It's only in the spiritual world, it's not in the conventional world out there. To be a doctor or a dentist or an airline pilot, it takes patience. It takes years and years of study. So this is a prerequisite for Dharma. And the master is the one who has done that training without any intention to be something, without any intention to be a teacher of anything, but to sit and be with this mind and this body as it manifests, and to recognize and understand the reality of this being that we call self. And then when there's no more work to be done, when all desire has finished, when all fear has fallen away, we're still in this place. Now what? Now what can we do with this understanding? So we offer it to the world. To continue a tradition of Dharma, not of religion, not of some kind of social structure, but of Dharma. And so the master in this monastery, he arrived in this place. What can I do now? My work is finished. What can I do? So I have to share this. As I go through the life process myself, as aging takes over, I recognize the fragility of life. And so I have to offer this to someone who is able to cherish it, someone who is able to take care of it. I need a disciple. So a disciple and a student, they're different things. The student very often is what we might call a fair weather student, as long as things are going well, as long as it's not too uncomfortable, as long as there's not something more interesting to do instead of the meditation or the retreats. But the disciple is the one who is committed exactly as the master had committed before. The disciple is the one who is committed to Dharma, to this path of liberation. And so the master decided, I need a disciple. I need someone to share this with, but someone who has a quality that can accept this teaching and respect it and honor it and nurture it. So on the Sunday when the townspeople were at the small monastery and the master was giving his weekly Dharma talk, he said, so I'm in the place now in my life where I am looking for a disciple. So when you go home, tell your children that if any of them want to train with me, then they must come next Saturday and we will look at the situation and I will choose one to be my disciple. And the parents said, yes, that's wonderful, that's wonderful. And of course, each one is thinking that would be such an honor, such a privilege if it was my son or my daughter who could be the disciple with this wonderful, loving master. And so the families went home and they told their children, and some of the children were interested. Yes, that would be good. Some were not interested, but would have to go anyway to please their parents. It's something really important to understand, that this practice that we do, that when we make our retreats, you can't do it for someone else. You can only do it for yourself, because the work is difficult often. It's always rewarding, but nevertheless, you have to do it because you want to do it. You have to be there because you want to be there. Otherwise, you just struggle. And I met this enough times in India when young couples would come and make retreats with us. Only one of them would want to do the retreat, but the other one would want to stay with their partner, which of course is not possible on retreat anyway. But so the one who wanted to be there would have this momentum to sit for the 10 days. Whereas the one who didn't want to be there would just struggle with the practice and would come to my room and say, what's the point of this? So we have to want to do it. So the Saturday arrived, and perhaps 20 young people, boys and girls, arrived. And one of them was a very pleasant young man called Ananda. Ananda is a beautiful name. It means something like joyful. And so Ananda joined the group. Now, Ananda really wanted to be a disciple. When he heard that the master was looking for a disciple, he thought, well, this is perfect for me. I really want this. And so he went with everyone else, and they sat in a long line, and the master came out and spoke to them in this loving, caring way. And he said, well, I'm so pleased that so many of you are here and that you would want to be a disciple, because, the work is hard, but nevertheless, it's always rewarding. So I'm really grateful. However, I'm only able to take one of you. I want to really focus my attention with one person, so I can give the best of me and they can receive the best of me, and so the best of Dhamma. So I have devised a little test, and he put his hand in a bag that he had on his shoulder, and he pulled out a handful of mixed seeds. And so he said, these seeds now, it's a mixture of seeds. And what I want to do, I want you to select a seed, any one you like. And then I want you all to take it home and put it in a plant pot and nurture it and take care of it and watch it grow. And 1 month from today, I want you all to bring back your plant pots, and we will see who has the most beautiful plant. And that will be the person who I will accept as my disciple. Well, of course, everyone was interested in that, a little competition. People seemed to like that. And so the master passed along the row with the seeds in his hand. And each of the young people, the boys and the girls, or the young men and young women, would take a seed. And they would hold it in their hand, they would treasure it. And so then they would go home. And they would find a plant pot, and they would find some soil, some good soil, perhaps some kind of fertilizer, something like this. They would plant it. Each one of them did this. They took care, they planted this seed, then they watered it, they put it in a beautiful place outside their home so the sun could be on it. And they took care of it. And then the time passed. And Ananda, of course, did exactly the same. But for Ananda, nothing really happened. And when the month had passed, everybody arrived back at the monastery with their plant pots. And some of them had the most beautiful flowers. The most beautiful tall flowers with colours and leaves, and just beautiful. Ananda, because nothing had happened with his plant pot. He had taken such good care. He had planted it in good soil. He had put some kind of plant food on it. He had watered it and put it in the sun. He'd taken such great care, but nothing. In 1 month, not one single green shoot. Absolutely nothing. And so he, with his head hung low, brought his empty of plants, plant pot, back to the monastery. And everyone sat in this long row, holding with pride their beautiful plants in front of them. And Ananda sat at the end with his plant pot with just bare soil. And the master came out, and he offered his Anjali, this greeting, this beautiful greeting, this connection between us. And he said, well, I'm so pleased to see so many of you here and such beautiful plants. And he slowly walked along the row and he looked at each plant and the person behind the plant pot. He said, well, that is just wonderful. That's a beautiful plant. It looks so well. And the next one and the next one and so on and so on. Until finally, he came to Ananda. Ananda is sitting there with his head hung low in shame. He couldn't even grow a plant. They do it themselves. But he felt so awkward. And so the master arrived. In front of Ananda, he said, Ananda, what happened? Ananda said, Master, I don't know. I planted the seed. I took such great care of it. I know you wanted the most beautiful plant. But I have nothing. So the master said, okay. And then he went back in front of everyone and he said, so, I have made my choice. And the person that I choose to be my disciple is Ananda. And of course everyone thought, what? I thought the competition was to have the most beautiful plant. And so, of course, with respect, they questioned the master's decision. The master, how can you say that? You said you wanted the most beautiful plant. Ananda hasn't got any plant at all. The master said, Ananda actually has the most beautiful plant. And all of you cheated. All of you. Because the seeds I gave you to choose from were dead. They had all been boiled in water. There was no life. There was no way anything could grow from them. And so all of you must have gone into the forest and found, and once you recognize this, and found a beautiful plant and put it in place of this seed that I gave you. So the most beautiful plant is from Ananda, because he's the one who did not cheat. And so Ananda became the disciple of the master. The prerequisite for the disciple is to have integrity, to have honesty, to have these beautiful qualities. Only when we are in this place ourselves are we going to be able to open up to the purity of Dharma. Dharma is not a religion. It's not a new social activity that you take up to read about Dharma, to read the suttas or the sutras if it's Mahayana. Knowing about Dharma is not the same as knowing Dharma itself. And so, we have to arrive in front of the teacher and bow at their feet and say, I don't know anything. I'm a skilled person. I'm married. I have children. I can drive a car. I can work. I can do all these things. But I don't know how to be happy. I'm always chasing the next thing. I'm caught in this cycle. I'm always running after the next thing. I don't know how to be happy. And then when you come to something like, well, actually, when you come to Vipassana, the first thing you're told to do is stop. Essentially, that's what the meditation is. You take this kind of posture, although the posture itself is not so important. You can certainly meditate in a chair. But you stop following this mind. You stop moving every time there's a slight irritation in the body. You cultivate this attitude of patience. Everything is changing. Everything is in a process of change. So we can be with that. We can observe these changes. We can observe these changes at the gross physical level, old age, sickness, and death. We can observe these changes at the mind level of thoughts, moods, feelings, and emotions, the desires that arise and pass away, the fears that arise and pass away. We can be aware of all these things. So the awareness is just looking, just being with this endless procession of things that we call life. And then the meditation is refined simply because the awareness becomes stronger. And then we begin to see the subtle manifestations of this being that we call self. And in that environment, in that patience, in that loving environment, we see the architect of our life. We see the cause of all our difficulties. And once we see the cause, which is not something outside, it's not our parents or even our government, it's not our partners, it's not our children. It's this being that can't be still, that's always grasping for the next thing or rejecting something because it's unpleasant or uncomfortable. And so, Ananda became a disciple. And because he was a disciple, then he had to learn. Now, although everything is happening spontaneously, the structure, simply because of languages, certainly in Buddhist teaching and how I trained, was Sila Samadhi Panya, Sila, morality. We have to cultivate a beautiful morality, how we manifest in the world, how we interact with other beings. This is our morality, our Sila. We have to cultivate that. Because once you become a disciple, or even a student, once you think you're a student of a teacher, or a student or a disciple of a system of Dharma, then everything you do in the world is manifesting your understanding of that. And so when we have these basic guidelines of how we should be, then we can feel protected. The Panchasila, the five rules of training, very simple. And they're things that we take upon ourselves. No one is instructing you to do this, except from the perspective of, well, if you want to be happy, these are the things to cultivate in your life. Harmlessness, which is what Sila is about. It's about harmlessness. And we take these rules upon ourselves to train ourselves. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from. So we're going to quieten down our life. And however we understand something at the beginning, because we're now practicing and cultivating Dharma understanding, then our understanding of ourselves becomes deeper, becomes more subtle. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from harming all living beings. How do you understand that? How do you understand that? So first of all, we take care of this being that we call self. We do it from a loving perspective. We take care of this being that we call self. Not from ego, not from selfishness, not from arrogance, but from love. And then we extend that to all beings. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from harming all other beings, all beings. So how do you understand that? At the beginning you might think, well, it's only about harming fellow human beings. Well, I don't do that. And then perhaps, well, okay, so maybe it extends to harming or not harming animals. Well, I don't harm animals, although I do eat meat, so if someone is harming them for me. When we make these arguments about how the Buddha said people can accept meat, we can often think, well, I don't kill them. I don't kill the animals, so it's all right to eat them. Well, this is, if you're comfortable with this, of course, that's fine. But it is a little bit like saying, well, I don't beat my children, but I get someone else to do it for me. So at the beginning, we have this understanding that we don't harm fellow fellow living beings. But also implied in that is the opposite, that we serve the world. We serve other beings. We take care of the beings that we share this planet with as much as we can, just as much as we can in different moments. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from taking that which has not been freely given or freely offered to me. Not to manipulate people into giving something to us that they don't want to give, but to, as happens in religion sometimes, but to make them feel guilty or to offer desires. If you do this, you'll get that. It cultivates patience, where we're not just grasping at something. I want that, I'd like that. Or the idea of stealing that, because it seems that nobody owns this thing here, so I'll just take it. So all those things fall away. And we begin to recognize simply by that, there's a huge difference between the idea of I need something and I want something. What we need, the needs for our life are very small. According to Buddhist teaching, there are just 4, which I won't enumerate now. So again, rather than just taking things for ourselves, we share. We offer what we have, and we all have so much. And even if that sharing is not material, which it doesn't have to be, of course, this is the understanding of the word dana. It's not just about money. It's about offering something. It means generosity, that we share what we have. We share our time, our concern. We share our compassion. We share our life in a beautiful way with the world that we're part of. The next one is, I undertake the rule of training to refrain from sexual misconduct. Well, that's really quite obvious that when we're in a long-term relationship, we take care of our partners. And we are truthful and honest and loving with them. But over time now, we understand that to be slightly larger, that we're not going to use any authority position we have to manipulate or take advantage of other people. This idea of emotional blackmail, this idea of, if you loved me, you would, when we want to influence someone to do something that they don't want to do. But we really want them to do it, and so we engage in this emotional blackmail, where we say, well, if you loved me, you would. And of course, the Vipassana answer to that is, well, I do love you, but I'm not going to do it. The two things are just not connected. And so the implied in that also is that we take care of others, not to exploit them, but to nurture them, to support them. I undertake the rule of training to refrain from using my speech in cruel and harmful ways. Dharma is a way of love, it's a way of peace, it's a way of uniting beings. And the first being that we have to start with is always ourselves. When we talk about the metta bhavana or the loving kindness practice, the first person we have to have love for is ourselves, which of course is the most difficult because of our cultural and social background, the conditioning we received as children. The idea it's selfish to put yourself first, but in Dharma, it's necessary to put yourself first. If you don't have love for yourself, how can you have love for others? And if you don't understand the nature of this mind, how will you share that with others? So the Dharma training is to take care of this being that we call self, because this being is our vehicle for illumination. And speech is such a powerful weapon. You can hurt someone so easily through speech. And so we take this rule upon ourselves. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to call people names. I'm not going to lie about them. I'm not going to tell tales about them. I'm going to use my speech to bring something, to bring harmony to different people and different groups of people. I'm going to be supportive in different situations. And this is how we understand this fourth precept, this fourth part of the Panchasila. And the last one is that we're not going to take drugs to change the consciousness. Of course, that's why you would take them. Why would you do something that's going to make you feel worse? But we're not going to do that anymore. Our Dharma practice, the essence of it is awareness. Awareness comes from a clear mind. And so we're emphasizing that. So we're not going to engage in alcohol and stronger, of course, much stronger drugs. Although alcohol itself is a very strong drug. It's just legal. So we're not going to do that. We're going to refrain from that because it alters the consciousness. It alters our behavior. And so we become like people in a dream or in a nightmare where our behavior changes. And we're no longer aware of what we're doing. So the opposite of that, of course, is to cultivate awareness. So we are aware of what we're doing. So this is the basis of our Dharma path. These 5 simple rules that govern our behavior, that we take upon ourselves. I'm not going to be a terrible person anymore. I'm going to be this loving person. I'm going to share that love with all beings. Now, why do we need the Sila as our basis? Because when you come to your meditation, that's what you're meeting. You're meeting you. You can't escape you. So all the thoughts, all the moods, the feelings, the emotions that you empower are waiting for the consequence. Is waiting for you in your meditation. This is why criminals and gangsters and terrible people don't do meditation. This is why they have to be so busy all the time, smoking and taking drugs and listening to music and always being distracted from the moment. And it's not just terrible people, it's us, isn't it? It's ordinary people in their lives. This idea of always being distracted, of never being patient with the moment, always trying to fill the empty spaces that we meet in our life. And so when we come to Dhamma, we begin to understand that what we're meeting in meditation is this being that we call self. It's not some special meditation being. It's this being with its thoughts, moods, feelings and emotions, this being with its life that begins to manifest in the meditation. And if we have to be constantly bombarded by our bad behavior, the best thing we can do is stop the bad behavior and learn to be a loving life, learn to be loving in our life and to love life, to accept things as they are without grasping at them because they're pleasant or rejecting them because they're unpleasant. And this requires patience, this Cultiparamita. So we sit in this spaciousness and we watch our life arrive in front of us. And with awareness, we see. With love, we accept. And with wisdom, we respond. do what we need to do. And this is Dhamma. This is the gift of the Master, not to teach these things, but to share their understanding. And to share that with other beings, those who come and say, please show me the way. Please show me. To take that first step of the acknowledgement, I don't know how to be happy. I don't know how to be in peace in my life. Please show me. So this is the story of Ananda, which I offer to you this morning for your consideration and your reflection, and may you all be well and happy.